Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Rozelle. I'm Vice President of Programs here at the Knowles Teacher Initiative. My co-presenter tonight is Ebony Freeman, who's our Marketing and Communications Manager. You'll hear from her throughout the presentation. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation, which will provide an overview of the Knowles Teacher Initiative and our Teaching Fellows program. During the presentation today, we encourage you to use the Q&A box on your screen to ask any questions that you might have. Ebony will relay those questions to me throughout the presentation. She'll be sorting through them to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. If she has time, she will also answer some of those as typed responses, and you'll be able to see that as the presentation goes on. So we'll get started. The Knowles Teacher Initiative was established by Janet and Harry Knowles in 1999 to increase the number of high-quality high school science and mathematics teachers and ultimately improve math and science education in the United States. At Knowles, we believe that teachers can and should be the primary agents of educational improvement. And this belief is woven throughout all aspects of the Foundation's programming, including our Teaching Fellows program, which is what we'll be discussing tonight. So we'll begin with an overview of the program. While new teachers are going through a certification or licensure program, they are often surrounded by a cohort of other new teachers, and they have dedicated mentors that are with them in their classrooms almost all the time. In addition, because they're usually connected to college campuses, they have access to many resources, including journals, experts, classroom materials, and technology. The first few years of teaching then can often be jarring to new teachers. They have a sense of isolation as they navigate their new school environment. Mentoring programs in some cases aren't as supportive or comprehensive as they need to be. And schools are not always able to provide the intellectual resources through professional development or the physical classroom materials that new teachers need to be able to enact the vision of teaching and the classroom that they want. So while they are attempting to learn a challenging new profession, they find themselves under-resourced. The Knowles Teaching Fellowship was designed specifically to address the challenges faced by new high school math and science teachers, to help them thrive as new teachers and become teacher leaders who are able to support other teachers and improve math and science education for all students. The Knowles Teaching Fellows program is a 5-year program that supports early career high school mathematics and science teachers in their efforts to develop teaching expertise and lead from the classroom. Each year, we award approximately 35 fellowships to new math and science teachers who have outstanding content knowledge in math and science, are committed to becoming great teachers, and possess potential to become the kinds of teacher leaders who make a difference in schools. The 5-year program has a curriculum with 2 phases. In phase 1, the first 3 years of the program, fellows reflect on and deepen their own mathematics or science knowledge. They develop the specialized forms of content knowledge that are needed for teaching. And they use that knowledge to create profound learning opportunities for students. Fellows learn increasingly sophisticated ways of examining their classroom cultures and instruction by applying analytical lenses to data that help them see and then increase the learning opportunities being offered to all of their students. While focusing on these areas, fellows are also supported in becoming a community of inquiry that engages with and as critical friends. And so this emphasis on inquiry with others serves as the foundation for teachers leading from the classroom. In phase 2, the last 2 years of the program, the focus of inquiry shifts from a fellow's individual classroom to the professional community in which the fellow works. Fellows are supported in bringing their school colleagues into this work by making themselves vulnerable and open to others' perspectives. Fellows grapple with their own professional goals and commitments and what it means for them to lead in their context. Additionally, they learn to understand their local and school community as a system, understand multiple leverage points for change, and experiment with ways to lead those communities toward better outcomes. In addition to the curriculum of the fellowship, equally as important to the impact of our program is the use of cohorts to build connection and community. We built our fellows program on a cohort model that allows fellows to connect with their peers who are at roughly the same point in their teaching career. And as our fellows finish the Teaching Fellows program, they tell us that there has been no greater professional support for them than that which comes from the cohort of teachers who go through the fellowship with them. The groups that fellows form in their cohorts allow them to experience and experiment with what small inquiry-focused learning communities look and feel like. And they get to try on the various roles that teachers might play in those communities. So fellows are supported to reimagine what their working relationships might look like in their own high schools. Teachers who wish to make a significant impact in their classrooms and schools must seek equitable outcomes for students because the US educational system has traditionally marginalized some learners, leaving them without access to equitable instruction in high school math and science. And this results in fewer opportunities to engage as empowered citizens or to enter and thrive in mathematics and science fields. So improving education for all students in the US requires teachers who are able to work collectively with their colleagues and other stakeholders to combat inequity and create more equitable spaces for all students to learn math and science. Ultimately, our goal is to support the development of teachers who recognize their role and their power in their school system and beyond, and feel empowered to impact the system in support of more equitable outcomes for students. As such, equity and inclusion are key threads of the Knowles Teaching Fellowship. So over the course of the 5-year program, fellows investigate how their personal identity influences equitable instruction, how teachers influence equity within their classroom and school community, and how teachers can grow their circle of influence. These fellows will engage in learning experiences that support their development across 3 levels of transformation with respect to equity and inclusion: the personal, the interpersonal, and the systemic. Let me say a bit about the fellowship year. The Knowles Summer Conference is the official start to each fellowship year. It's a 3-day meeting that takes place in July, usually in Philadelphia. It's a distinctive event that brings together nearly all of our members of the Knowles community to interact with, learn from, and provide critical feedback to each other within a variety of settings and structures. All 5 cohorts of the teaching fellows attend the meeting along with senior fellows, who I'll talk about in a minute, who are engaged in specific activities related to summer conference, as well as our staff and other experts in math and science education. Summer conference is divided between opportunities for fellows to work with their cohort, but also to network and learn from other fellows in other cohorts. In the afternoons, in particular, meeting participants attend their choice of learning sessions that have been proposed, reviewed, designed, and led by other fellows. These learning sessions might be an interactive presentation or a workshop or some kind of collaborative learning group. Fellows who lead these sessions are provided with a coach, a Knowles senior fellow who has participated in our coaching institute, who supports session leaders to establish learning goals and then evaluate the effectiveness of their sessions. Fellows also choose a book to read together each summer and organize a variety of discussions about that book throughout the meeting. And finally, fellows have opportunities to organize informal discussions over meals and during meeting breaks that allow them to find common ground organize working groups, and discuss topics that interest them. For many fellows like Sarah, a science teacher in Queens, the Knowles Summer Conference is often the first time that they present at a professional conference. So it really becomes a groundwork for fellows sharing the knowledge they generate with peers on the local, state, and national level. In addition to the Knowles Summer Conference, we bring all members of a cohort together twice a year to meet in person. It's a significant investment, but it's crucial in terms of supporting beginning teachers. Meeting in person serves several really important purposes to us. First, our staff plan and implement professional development for fellows that introduces fellows to important new ideas in the fields of math and science education and teacher leadership. It supports those fellows in considering critically how the ideas they're learning about make sense in their local context, and then it equips fellows to plan for implementing changes to their practice as teachers and leaders. Second, while our fellows engage in robust work online, the intense time they spend with one another at meetings, at meals, even socializing late into the night, those serve as really critical components to community building. And finally, while we strive to be careful stewards of Knowles resources, we also recognize that teachers deserve to be treated like professionals. So to that end, we make sure that fellows are treated well. We eat good food together, and we make sure our meeting sites are pleasant places to be and to work. Olivia Bean, a chemistry teacher in Portland, Maine, shared this reflection about attending Knowles events. The biggest impact has always been about improving and changing. Every time I participate in a Knowles event, I end up with at least one new thing I want to incorporate into my practice. Before switching gears to discuss the benefits available to Knowles teaching fellows, I do just want to briefly highlight our senior fellows program, and I mentioned senior fellows just a minute ago. After completing the 5th year of the fellowship, teaching fellows become senior fellows. So through the senior fellows program, former teaching fellows have opportunities to remain involved in the Knowles community throughout the rest of their careers and to be supported in ongoing leadership efforts. Senior fellows continue to be supported as teacher leaders. We have programs to support them to lead professional development and to coach other teachers. We have a senior fellow run journal that features teachers' voices and gives them a platform to speak to other teachers and to others within the educational system. Senior fellows continue to innovate and design new instructional approaches as instructional leaders. So really, once someone becomes a teaching fellow, our support, we hope, is career long. So before I turn to talk a little bit about some of the other benefits of the program, I'll stop here to see if there are any questions.
Don't have any questions at the moment, Jeff.
Okay. Knowles teaching fellows also receive a comprehensive array of benefits that are designed to support new teachers and emerging teacher leaders. These benefits include financial support, mentoring and coaching, and membership into a national community of peers. The Knowles Teacher Initiative supports fellows financially by offering grants to cover expenses associated with purchasing classroom materials and engaging in professional development. Additionally, fellows are eligible to request funds to develop and execute leadership activities that might have an impact beyond their own classroom. In addition to the grants, fellows are eligible to receive stipends. We recognize that our fellows are highly accomplished and have often made sacrifices, both in money spent on teacher preparation, as well as opportunity costs incurred by choosing a lower paying profession And so these stipends allow them to reduce their debts, reduce the financial burden that teachers often bear. These stipends can be used to support fellows financially during the summer, allowing them to concentrate on reflecting on the past year, preparing for the coming year, attending professional development, rather than taking on a part-time job during the summer, as many teachers need to do. The various grants and stipends are subject to board approval on an annual basis. But this year, as example, and it's been this amount for the past few years, fellows have $9,000 to use on professional development, classroom materials, and stipends. We value the expertise and knowledge of skillful teachers, which is why we support our fellows with mentors and coaches. In fact, we recruit staff with significant teaching experience to support our fellows. Our experienced staff have well over 100 years of teaching experience, and we all view ourselves first and foremost as teachers. Our staff regularly check in with fellows, support them to plan, reflect on instruction with them, talk them through challenging professional dilemmas, and support them through personal challenges. Staff observe fellows teach, either virtually or in person, and coach them in improvement in a way that fellows direct. In addition to staff, each team supports fellows with 2 or 3 veteran teachers, many of them with decades of experience as teachers and teacher leaders, and we call them team specialists. They bring this sort of on the ground experience and credibility. They'll attend meetings with fellows, support fellows in conducting inquiry into their practice, and really provide counsel as master teachers. Knowles Fellows are able to tap into a network of what's now over 450 teachers, our teaching fellows and senior fellows who are committed to improving math and science education. From the in-person conversations that take place in meetings that I described before, to virtual conversations that take place on our online community, invaluable support is always nearby. Okay, so I'm going to turn to eligibility in a second here. Ebony, are there any questions though about the program or the benefits before I turn to that?
Yes, Jeff, I have one question. What are the expectations for a mentee? Do they meet regularly with their mentor/coach?
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to kind of assume with that question, you can follow up if you have something extra here. And when you mentee, we sort of talk about what are the expectations for a fellow. And so I'll talk a little bit about those. The first expectation is that fellows will attend the 3 meetings a year that we discussed. So fellows are required to attend the summer meeting, the fall, and the spring meetings. Those are in the summer held during the week, but in the fall and spring held on a Friday and a Saturday. So fellows travel Thursday after they finish teaching to some location in the country, and then fly home on Sunday. And so that's one sort of expectation that they have. The second is that fellows meet individually with the staff person who's assigned to them. That's sort of like checking in. Sometimes it's just by email, sometimes it's a quick Zoom call. So, every 5 or 6 weeks, fellows touch base with their staff and check in with how they're doing. They also meet with a small group of members of their cohort. Those might be called an inquiry group or a home group. And so they'll meet, again, roughly monthly or a couple hours with that group of fellows online. So that's kind of the set of expectations. And there's a lot that fellows can kind of scale up if they want. So they can certainly meet more often with other cohorts. They are able to, as I talked about, access these financial benefits. So that would require them to, write a short sort of application or proposal that allows them to access the benefits. to be able to attend a national conference or get materials for their classroom. Those are, of course, all optional and are allowed to scale up. But the kind of minimum requirements are meet 3 times a year in person, and then have regularly, monthly or so, meetings with another group of fellows in their cohort.
Jeff, I have 2 more questions.
Sure.
The next question is it focused more on high-risk youth for marginalized communities or marginalized communities in general? How does the equity work?
It is not, it's not need-based in any way. So, and by that, what I mean is there's not any sort of need to be established by the fellow, nor do we prioritize some schools over others in terms of where a fellow chooses to work. So once somebody becomes a fellow, they're able to teach in any school that they wish. We certainly have fellows who teach in, for example, Title I schools. We have fellows that teach in charters, public, private, independent, all across the board. When we think about equity, I think one of the main things that we know about schools is that that within every school, there's a tremendous amount of diversity and students who have higher and lower needs. And so a lot of our work is actually helping fellows uncover what's going on in their own context and what are the equity concerns and the equity challenges in their particular local context. We know they're different. They're different from school to school. They're different, sometimes even from classroom to classroom. And so that kind of exploration of what equity means in that case is a big focus of fellowships. We do also think a lot about, larger systemic sorts of challenges, and our fellows wrestle with what it means to be a teacher in 21st century America. And so that's certainly a part of the conversation that our fellows engage in or supported to engage in. But in terms of that key piece, it's not targeted to any particular community, and fellows are able to access resources no matter what school they teach in, as long as we talk about here in a second with eligibility, that it is a high school in the United States.
Thank you, Jeff. I have one more question. How would receiving grant money for materials work? Is it similar to writing a grant? How far in advance would a request need to be put in for a specific lab experience per se?
Yeah, great question. It is very similar to writing a grant. And in fact, when we designed our application process, we looked really careful, or I'm sorry, our granting process, we looked really carefully at other kinds of grants that teachers might need to write to be able to access materials in other settings. And so, as you might expect, a fellow describes their needs, talks about what their goals are, their implementation plan, evaluates how they'll know whether what they've requested or what they're using works, and a budget. And that gets reviewed, and our staff give feedback to fellows about their ideas. And so we've learned over the years that fellows, in fact, become quite good at writing grants, and our fellows are often quite successful at grant writing outside of us. So yes, it looks like that. The truth is that we almost always say yes to requests because, again, fellows have an allocation of money that's set aside for them. And so it's really, we're just trying to help fellows make sure they use their allocation well. Generally about a month out is the timeline that we work on. So if you have particular materials, usually the process, ordering, shipping, all that kind of stuff, generally about a month out is sort of the deadline that we work on.
Thank you. And another one actually came in. How is being rewarded other grants and opportunities impact selection?
That's a great question. I think I'll actually hold off a second on that one.
Okay.
Until we talk about the application process. So
Okay.
we'll come back to that question if it hasn't been answered when we talk about our criteria, because I think certainly the answer is it can impact in a couple different criteria. So we'll look at those when we get to that.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. That's it at this time.
Oh, great. Okay, so we'll talk about eligibility now. Prospective applicants must meet the following eligibility requirements. The fellowship seeks to support individuals who intend to make teaching their primary career. In order to be eligible for the fellowship, applicants must have recent knowledge of the content they intend to teach. So that means we look for applicants who have earned a related degree between 2012 and September 1st, 2022. Additionally, applicants must have earned a secondary certification somewhere between January 1st, 2017 and September 1st, 2022, with the goal of teaching full-time in a high school math or science classroom no later than the fall of 2022. Last, the fellowship is intended to support teachers who are first or second year teachers during their first year of the fellowship. So for the purposes of eligibility, we consider an applicant's first year of teaching to be the first year in which they teach full-time for the full academic year as the teacher of record. That's a bit cumbersome in the way we talk about it. So in general, you can think of it this way. If you're listening and you're one of the new teachers or you're supporting new teachers, if at this very moment, someone is a first year teacher, or they are in their student teaching year, preparing to be a first year teacher in fall of 2022, then they are eligible. That's sort of the sweet spot, the 2-year window where people would be eligible. I will say another thing about the content degree. When an applicant selects or registers, they are asked to select one of 4 content areas: physics, chemistry, biology, or mathematics. And so what we mean by when we say a recent math or science degree is a degree that matches either physics, chemistry, biology, or mathematics as an undergraduate degree, or where someone has taken enough coursework to be roughly what a major in one of those disciplines might be. So for example, it's not uncommon for an engineer, a mechanical engineer, to have taken as much physics as a physics major might. And so they could meet the eligibility requirement for physics by nature of the amount of courses. It's also possible that an engineer might also have as much mathematics as a math major, and therefore would meet the requirement there as well. We do recognize that even with these specific criteria, it's certainly possible that you're going to have specific questions about your situation. We understand that, and we want to make sure that you're able to confirm your eligibility before investing the time that you need to apply for the fellowship. So if you have any questions regarding eligibility, please send your inquiry to apply@knowlesteachers.org, and we will get back to you quickly. It's going to come to one of us quite quickly, and we'll get back to you right away. That address, the apply@knowlesteachers.org, will be up on the last slide as well when we get to that. So Evan, any questions about eligibility here before I move on?
I have one that might be better suited for apply, but I will read it for you so that
Sure.
you can judge that one. I'm a career changer, so my science degree was obtained before 2012. I am certified, but this sounds like I'm not eligible. Am I right?
You might be, or you might not be. And so I think this is a great example of that sort of nuance around that particular spot. And I think the best thing to do, if you have a CV or resume, or if perhaps you wouldn't mind just even sort of writing out your history and sending it to apply@knowlesteachers.org, just a paragraph, we'll be able to sort of tell. The biggest thing is that there are other ways that someone could demonstrate recent content knowledge besides having that degree. So for example, if someone is a practicing scientist or mathematician, if you've been working in a lab in that time and you're applying in chemistry, all of those kinds of things would be other indications of of recent content knowledge, which is what we're looking for in that tenure. So a lot of it depends on what you were doing in that time in the last 10 years. So I would encourage you to just send a note to apply, and we'll get back to you and make sure you have an answer about eligibility before you spend any more time on it.
That's it at this time.
Great. Okay, so we'll turn now to the application process, and in this we'll hit some more about the criteria, and I think that'll be when we're able to talk about where something like being awarded grants or opportunities might fit as well. So to be considered for a 2022 Knowles Teaching Fellowship, applicants must submit an online application, then participate in an individual interview, and then participate in group interviews. For this year, for the selection of the 2022 cohort, this will all be online. Both the individual interview and the group interviews in May will be conducted in an online space. As part of the application, applicants are required to write 3 essays and obtain 3 letters of recommendation describing how they meet each of the 3 criteria that I'll discuss in a minute. In addition, all applicants submit a CV or a resume and an unofficial transcript from all of their college experiences. So that would include if you attended a community college or transferred universities in general. We would want transcripts unofficial from all of those. Again, as I mentioned, when an applicant registers, they'll be asked to select the content area in which they will be assessed throughout the process. So applicants will choose one of 4 content areas: math, physics, chemistry, or biology. Following a review of the written application, semifinalists will be identified. Applicants who are selected as semifinalists will receive an email in February inviting them to schedule a Zoom interview. This individual interview will last approximately an hour. It's designed to help us learn more about applicants with respect to our 3 criteria. We may ask about experiences that applicants wrote about in their essays or information contained in their transcripts or letters of recommendation. If an applicant is selected as a finalist, we will invite them to participate in group interviews. I said May earlier. It actually will take place virtually on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. The group interviews will take place throughout the day, beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern, and may go well into the evening. Participation in all of the activities is mandatory, and none of the activities can be rescheduled. So an applicant must make sure they're available on April 23rd. If you're selected as a finalist and then determine later that you can't attend the group interviews, at that point, then your application would be declined. Each year, we evaluate applicants with regard to 3 criteria. Successful fellowship applicants possess the potential to develop the content knowledge needed for teaching, exemplary teaching practices, and the qualities of a teacher leader. The first of our criteria is the potential to develop the content knowledge needed for teaching. On our website, you can find a full description of this criteria, but in short, we're looking for people who have strong preparation in their content discipline, who also have the potential to develop the specialized content knowledge that teachers need to teach well. We do expect that fellows will have at least a bachelor's degree in a field connected to the subject on which they're being assessed. Again, this doesn't mean necessarily that if an applicant chose math to be evaluated in, that they have a degree in math. Some of our math fellows may have degrees in engineering or other related fields, but it does mean that an applicant should have significant depth, breadth, and interconnectedness of knowledge from the coursework that they've taken. In general, successful candidates have at least a 3.0 in their college coursework and in their math or science coursework specifically. In addition to evaluating a candidate's coursework, we also look at an applicant's response to the essay that addresses the content knowledge needed for teaching, the letter of recommendation written to address content knowledge for teaching, and any awards, honors, internships, or other distinctive content-related experiences that they might have had. So to actually circle back to the question about grants or other that sort of thing impacting selection, this would be an example of that. So if someone has been a successful grant writer in their scientific field, for example, if they were had been awarded a graduate research fellowship from the National Science Foundation or something like that, that would clearly be evidence for someone's potential in terms of their content knowledge for teaching. I do want to say an additional word about the letters of recommendation. So you'll notice that I said there is a letter of recommendation written to address content knowledge. It's important to realize that the 3 letters of recommendation are all written to a different criteria. So for content knowledge for teaching, we're seeking someone who can directly address a candidate's potential to develop content knowledge for teaching, not just a general letter of recommendation. So when you select recommenders in our online system, you're actually going to be indicating which recommender you want to address content knowledge. And so it should be someone who can speak to your math and science knowledge or your math and science background. The second criterion focuses on applicants' potential to develop exemplary teaching practices. Again, you can find a full description of this on our website, but in short, we're seeking candidates who are deeply committed to teaching math or science at the high school level, who understand that teaching is a complex endeavor that requires a significant investment to continued growth, and who have a well-developed habit of reflection that allows them to learn from their experiences. They also critically examine their own practices with the goal of leveraging these strengths and promoting equitable learning opportunities for all students. When assessing an applicant's potential in this area, we will look at the essay, as well as their resume or CV. Typically, the letter of recommendation for this criterion is written by someone who knows the candidate's potential as a teacher. The third selection criterion is the potential to develop the quality of a teacher leader. We're committed to the belief that teachers can and should be the change agents in education. And so we're seeking candidates who develop their capacity for collaborative leadership in previous experiences and demonstrate the propensity to continue to develop as leaders in and from the classroom. We review the essay written for leadership, as well as to review the CV or the resume, and the letters of recommendation for this criterion speak to a candidate's leadership potential. It may not be someone who knows the candidate from an academic or teaching setting, but it should be somebody who can speak to a candidate's leadership potential. So again, back to the initial question around grants. This might be another place where if someone who maybe wasn't in science or mathematics, but had written a grant to make change happen in their local context, that could certainly be viewed as something that would be an indicator of somebody's potential to become a teacher leader. And so really, in a lot of ways, we evaluate all of the activities that we might find on a CV or resume against these particular criteria. And that's how we use experiences like that to evaluate candidates. Okay, at this time, I'll open the floor for any other questions that people might have.
Sure, I have a few. Here's the first one. This might be too specific, but is there a specific criteria for equivalent coursework for a math major? I don't have a math degree, but I minored in math and have taken many math classes in college. Could I still be eligible?
You could still be eligible. Yeah, so the specific criteria, I would say it's the equivalent of a math major. And so you're right in the sense that what is a math major varies from university to university. So we don't have a checklist of courses, but we're essentially looking at the depth and breadth of the courses that someone might have. So what I would encourage you in this case is if you, and the truth is that in some places a minor is a relatively few number of courses, and in other places a minor is very much equivalent to a major. And so what we really would do would look at your transcript in particular and very specifically at the coursework to make that judgment. If you would like, please send your transcript, unofficial, to apply@knowlesteachers.org, kind of summarize your situation, and we will be happy to take a look at it now before you even fill out the application. I'd encourage you to register still today and sort of get yourself into the system, but you could also then send us a quick email with your transcript and we'll get back to you right away.
Okay, and the next question reads, the state county seems behind on everything. And I don't even know if I have a valid license, though I hold a PhD in physics. Does this affect my eligibility?
It might actually. You are required to have a certification or licensure prior to beginning the fellowship in September of 2022. So if you're currently a first-year teacher and you may not have a state license right now, and certainly there are some states that if you have a PhD in physics, they allow you to teach. It's possible that they may actually license you to teach with some sort of alternative licensure granted for that, and that would qualify for us. So in a lot of ways, it's maybe again a question best sort of served up to apply at knowlesteachers.org, where we can kind of get the details of your situation and understand what's going on there. You are required to have a state certification or license, but it can be an alternative license, like the one you may be describing, depending on your state.
Thank you. And I have one more question. Do you limit candidates based on the content area they are choosing? Something like not wanting too many biology fellows?
No, we don't. We attempt to select the candidates who have the highest potential across the three criteria, and we are not limiting the number of people that we have by any particular content area. I don't think your question is asking this, but I'll just reiterate this. We do limit what content areas you're eligible. So it is just biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. Those are the only content areas, or those are the content areas on which you will be evaluated as you come into the process. So sometimes people have majors in other disciplines, but in our case, it is limited to those 4 disciplines that we evaluate candidates in. So I think I answered that question, but we don't have a limit. There's not like a hard cap. We'll never take more than 10 biology teachers or something along those lines.
I have one more that just came in. Is already helping students get scholarships and mentors valid, as I believe they're saying, as a form of advocacy?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, that sounds exactly like something that you would want to highlight in a CV or resume, and certainly could be used as a way of evidence for somebody's potential as a teacher leader. It absolutely sounds like the kind of thing that you would want to highlight, or perhaps even if you actually go in and register, you'll be able to see our essay prompts, and it's certainly possible even there that you might be able to tell the story of what you're doing there in addressing one of the essay prompts. So I would, if you are a new teacher listening to this call, either in that student teacher or in your first year teacher, I would encourage you, like sort of before you shut out of your computer tonight, if this sounds like something you're interested in, to go to knowlesteachers.org/Knowles Fellowship and register right now. The registration is very short, allows you to get into the system. That way you'll be getting reminder emails. It makes it easier to access us in terms of questions. We'll have your materials submitted there. So I would encourage you tonight to go ahead and get registered. And then the application is due on January 9th. So you'll be able to sort of already be in the system. You have plenty of time to complete your application if you were to get started on it. As well, once you're in the application system, you're able to see the essay prompts, and you could give us your the names and email address of your recommenders so that we can reach out to them and get that recommendation process started as well. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Knowles Teachers. We've been putting some things out there with different information about the applications or reasons that you might be interested and apply. As well, there's the email address that I promised. It's apply@knowlesteachers.org. And again, we're a small family foundation. There's 20 of us here. If you send in a question, it's likely to be me or Ebony or Jen or somebody here in the office who answers the question, gets back to you. It's going to be a very personal kind of experience, and you'll get plenty of help. So we really want to make sure that you apply and fill out an application if you think this is a good fit for you.
Chef, I actually have one more question just come in.
Sure.
I started the application last year, but needed to withdraw for personal reasons. Do I need to register again?
You do need to start a new application. And so actually when you go in, I believe the way that it's set up is that it will ask you whether you've started it before, and you can use the same username and password, but you will start a new application in the system when you get in. If you have any issues at all, like you're struggling to get back in or to get that new application started, just email us at apply and we'll get you the information that you need. You don't need to register again, but there is another application.
Yes, I think the verbiage will say log in with existing credentials.
Yes,
And you should be able to get in that way.
Yep, that's exactly right. And again, if you are for whatever reason struggling with the existing credentials, you can always reach out to apply. We'll be sure to help you.
And that's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you so much for everybody who attended. And again, if you're a new teacher, we sure hope you apply. If you work with new teachers and you were attending to get information for them, thank you for the work that you do. And please let us know if you have any questions or need any support in helping some of your teachers. Have a really great evening, and thanks so much for attending.